Hi, this is Dr. Ted Lin. I wanted to let everybody know, in my opinion, when I would go ahead and get tested for the coronavirus. Right now, testing as of today, 3/13/2020, it's still relatively limited, at least here in the United States. So, I've been getting a lot of questions in terms of, hey, what's going on? When did I get tested? Why can't I get tested? And whatnot. So I wanted to talk today about when is it worth getting tested, what the test shows you or what it will reveal. I'm also going to talk about a little bit in terms of why sometimes doctors may not want to get you tested and things along those lines, because I've been hearing a lot of things on the media where they show people saying, "Oh my God, I got I feel like I have these symptoms that are similar to what COVID would be, but I don't, they tested me for a flu, it was negative, but I can't get the coronavirus test." So let's kind of talk about when the COVID test is useful, and when I would get it and when I wouldn't. So just straight off the bat, I'd be very careful in terms of getting tested right now, before testing is widely available. And the reason why is because, you don't want to go into a testing center, and testing center obviously is higher risk, right? You have all these people who think they have COVID, and a lot of them might. So, going to the clinic or the ER would be the last thing that I would want to do if I had a common cold. Because if I had a common cold, I went to get tested, and then I ended up picking up COVID there, I would not be very happy at all. So let's kind of talk about when it's what the test does and when it's worth it. So the COVID test is a PCR test. So what it is testing for is when you get swabbed, it's looking for little pieces of the viral DNA. So it'll look for little chains of nucleic acids that kind of is unique to the coronavirus that we're testing for. So what it will tell you is whether or not you have an active infection. It will not tell you if you have been infected before in the past, and it will not tell you whether or not you have immunity to the test. It will only tell you if you are currently actively infected and your body has viruses that the test is able to pick up, or viral pieces. And also it shows that your body has not cleared it if it is positive. So knowing that, you have to ask yourself, if I know I have this disease, how is it gonna change what I do? So let's kind of go through some of them. So right now, if you do not have any significant symptoms, and what I mean by significant is you're not having any sort of chest pain, no shortness of breath, you're not getting, kind of lightheaded. If it feels like a common cold right now, like you have high fevers, chills, but if you're still able to keep down fluids, you're still, doing okay with over-the-counter medication, you don't feel like you're having chest pain, shortness of breath, where you're like, man, I need to get it validated, I might need some oxygen. Same thing with your kids. If it feels like you just have a really bad cold, I don't think it's worth going in right now with waiting 3 to 4 hours in line for limited testing and then putting yourself at risk for COVID. And here's the reason why, is because right now there's nothing you could do. There's nothing we have that will treat you. If you came into me and I tested you for coronavirus and it was positive, and your vital signs were stable, I would say, hey, look, go home, get some rest, quarantine yourself. There's nothing we're gonna do, okay? When it's useful to get testing is if you work with kids, if you work with a lot of interaction with the public, if you work in healthcare, where if you are positive and you go out and you're gonna have a lot of interaction with a lot of people and you could potentially spread this to a lot of people, that's when it's gonna be helpful for you to know, okay? So, let's say, I'm a physician and, I see quite a few patients a day. Let's say I called in to my employer to say, hey, look, I have these cough and cold-like symptoms, and they're like, hey, it doesn't matter, we want you to come in unless you are positive you have coronavirus. So if they are not gonna let you off until you get tested, then it is worthwhile getting tested. I had a friend who is a physician's assistant, and she sees probably 30 to 35 patients a day. They just got back from a trip. She's concerned. She's the perfect example of who should get tested now. Okay, even though she's has a bad cold, she's feeling fine, but if she has COVID, it makes a difference because she doesn't want to go into work and get exposed other people. But if you could stay at home, if you could quarantine yourself, I think at this point it is not worthwhile to get the COVID testing. Somewhere down the road, it will be worth getting tested just because it helps us, the medical profession, know how many cases are out there, what's out there, and what to expect just based on statistics alone. But right now, when there are limited testing, it is not worthwhile to go in because A, it's not going to change what we do from a medical perspective, and B, you're actually putting yourself at a higher risk by going to a doctor's office that potentially has people who do have COVID crawling around the place. Same thing with a hospital. A hospital, a doctor's clinic right now is probably going to be your highest risk location to catch this thing. Okay, so I recommend it unless you're having severe symptoms, you're having shortness of breath, chest pain, lightheadedness, anything else that makes you feel that you might be potentially unstable. Okay, then you need to get evaluated. Otherwise, if you are just feels like this is a bad cold, don't just go in to get just to get checked out. It's not going to be worth it. So. And it also just tells you whether or not you have the active infection. Some people are like, oh, I want to get tested to know if I've had it and I have immunity. The test does not do that. I also wanted to kind of address the different types of tests out there because I think the media is talking about, oh, people getting a flu test, it's negative. And then they think, oh, if my flu test is negative, I must have COVID or there's a good possibility. And that's not necessarily the case. So when you get tested for the flu, the swab test for influenza A and influenza B, the two predominant, types of influenza testing. And that is all it tests. It does not test for any of the other common cold viruses. So there's rhinoviruses, other coronavirus types. There is RSV, parainfluenza. There's just a lot of different, reasons or different viruses out there that will cause that could cause cough and cold symptoms. To get those tested, you will need to get a viral respiratory panel, or sometimes they just, there's a respiratory panel that will test for other, kind of lung pathogens. So that will test for more. So a lot of times for us, if we have limited COVID testing, what we will do is we will go ahead and test you for a full respiratory panel. So the theory is if you have something that's positive on that respiratory panel, because that respiratory panel is also going to test for influenza as well as a lot of the other common viruses out there. So if it's positive for any one of those, then the thought of having a positive, let's say, rhinovirus as well as potentially having a co-infection of COVID-19 is only about 1% to 2% according to data from China. So a lot of times you're going to get that respiratory panel. If it's negative, then they're going to follow up with a coronavirus testing. Okay, so that's to kind of help clear that up a little bit in terms of kind of people getting confused with when do I get the influenza test, when I get this respiratory panel, when I go ahead and get this COVID-19 test that's in limited availability. So that kind of breaks it down in a little bit of a nutshell. So. Kind of long story short, if you feel like you have the common cold symptoms, go ahead. If you're able to quarantine yourself in a room so your other family members potentially don't get it or has less of exposure, go ahead and do that. It's not worth testing, at least not at this point when we have limited tests. Now, if you work with the public, you work with a lot of people where potentially this could spread. If you work with a vulnerable population, people who are elderly, immunocompromised, then it is absolutely worth testing and make sure you let your physician know. Okay. Otherwise, if you're feeling okay and you just have the cold, you are putting yourself at a higher risk by going into a doctor's clinic and by going into the ER or a hospital if you do not have unstable symptoms. And that is pretty much a nutshell. If you have any sort of questions, please go ahead and comment down below. I will answer all the questions the best that I can with the limited time that I do have. If this video was helpful, please hit the like button. It does help to get the word out. And if you want to get more updates and videos of just very practical explanations of what to do with kind of these COVID situation without having to go through and filter out everything that's in the media, please subscribe. So again, if there's any questions, please let me know. I will be putting out more videos in terms of kind of when to go test, what symptoms, and what me and my family are doing to help prevent this, and how we're changing our behavior to help I guess society as a whole, so we don't spread this thing, and also why it's important. So I wanted to go ahead and put this out because this is the big question right now. I will start bringing in and talking about some pathophys and why it's important from a public health perspective that this doesn't spread too fast so the medical system gets overwhelmed. Thank you very much. And again, if this was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.